on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here for our weekly DFS value picks for the Charles Schwab Challenge. In this video, we'll be going over some of those lower priced plays, priced $7,500 and below on Draftkings, to help give you some flexibility with building your lineups and spend up for an extra stud or two along the way. Of course, this is one of the most important videos week in and week out because we're thinking through a large field GPP type of lens. So not only are we looking for high upside plays, but also plays that are going to be relatively low owned that we should be able to get some leverage to on the field. So quite a few considerations when it comes to these cheap players. And with that being said, they're not safe, right? They're high upside plays meant for these 20, 30,000 entry plus type of contest where you're really trying to beat the entire field, right? Trying to take something there in the top 5 for one of those large payouts. So with a lot to talk about, a lot of analysis that I'd love to get into, let's hop right on into it. Alrighty, we got the projections on the screen, and let's go ahead and hop into the cheapies. And first off, I want to say that even though we have such a strong field up top, the 7K range, 6K range, I just put it at an average level. This is an invitational level field, but at most invitational tournaments, I'd argue that we have a much stronger value tier. So this week, it looks a little bit more like a usual PGA Tour stop at 144 golfer field than it does an invitational or top end type of field event. So just understand that the drop off in talent is a little bit more severe this week than most. But the first value pick I want to touch on, and it's not one that I love to stomach here, but it's one that makes a whole lot of sense, is Patrick Reed at $7,400. And last week at a major championship, he had by far his best performance for quite some time in one particular category, and that would be his approach play. He gained over 5 strokes on the week on approach to the field, and that wasn't just any field. That was a major championship level field, and he gained a majority of those strokes over the weekend, where a lot of those lower tier players had already been cut out, and a lot of those shots gained metrics mean a whole lot more, right, in that field. For days 1 and 2, with a lot of the amateurs, PGA professionals, guys from some of the other tours in the field, maybe it's skewed a little bit, right? You might get a little bit of an extra boost on Thursday and Friday, but over the weekend, if you're gaining to the field, that's something to be proud of there. So at $7,400, I understand that the modeling doesn't look all that great, right? Outside of last week, Patrick Reed hasn't really been hitting the ball all that well for quite some time. Just to give you an idea, losing off the tee, you can see he's losing on approach. He's still gaining in both short game categories, which you'd always expect to see from a Patrick Reed. But at this golf course specifically, it's all about hitting your irons and all about making a ton of putts. And that's what we've seen from Patrick Reed the last 2 to 3 events. And it's not just the PGA Championship where Reed's looked a lot better. Look back the last 3 to 4 events where he started to make some cuts again, and you can see that he's starting to get a little bit of momentum. So just to show you what I'm talking about, 34th last week. Wells Fargo wasn't all that great, but he made the cut at Mexico. He made the cut at the Masters. A few other made cuts before that as well, so he's certainly starting to trend in that right direction. The real X factor for him is going to be that iron play. If he can bring the irons to the table, Patrick Reed is a very dangerous man because that's the one category where he really lacks to the field. If you take a look at his course history here, you can see it's not all that great. It's a little bit hit or miss. Missed cut last year, but 7th place finish in 2020. And that is going to be something that's common throughout a lot of the plays here, is a volatile course history. Pretty much outside of a few exceptions in the field, guys go out there and either miss the cut year in and year out here or go out there and finish in the top 25, at least for the plays that we're looking at. And like I said, these aren't safe plays, but based on the momentum that we've started to see from Patrick Reed, the irons particularly last week, if he can continue that here at Colonial, a course that much better suits his needs than what he had last week at Southern Hills, I'd expect him to have an even better performance in a weaker field, which of course would make that performance even better. And next up, we have Rickie Fowler, the other poster child from the thumbnail there, and he's at that same price tag as $7,400. And Rickie has really started to look solid of late as well, so kind of similar to a Patrick Reed. You can take a look at his recent form, which he's had a few missed cuts, but a 23rd at the PGA, that is certainly respectable. He's always been solid in the major championships, 21st at Wells Fargo. A similar setup to what they're going to have this week. While he did miss the cut at the RBC and the Valero Texas Open, it started to look a lot more solid for Rickie Fowler of late than it has for, frankly, the last year and a half. Last week was solid with his irons. He gained significantly to the field. In fact, over his last 24 measured rounds, the only category he's losing with is off the tee, and it's just a slight loser with the putter. But the one thing that is really looking great for Rickie Fowler is his bent grass putting splits. he's gaining a ton more strokes on bent grass for his career than what he has of late, which if you guys seen the channel before, you know that I'm a huge putting splits guy when it comes to surface type. That means a lot of positive regression is due to come. We know Rickie Fowler is one of the best putters in the world, and when you put him on bent grass, he's borderline special. So even though we didn't see it at Southern Hills, we saw flashes of it from time to time. If he gets that flat stick rolling, he's been solid in every other category but off the tee. That's the recipe for him to go out there and finish in the top 10 this time rather than the top 23 finish that we saw last week. What held him back at Southern Hills was the driver, of course. It was kind of a driver-heavy type of course where you had to gain a ton of strokes off the tee. Colonial, not that type of golf course. In fact, it's a golf course where off the tee play has historically been a bit de-emphasized. You can go out there, just focus on hitting fairways rather than going out there and overpowering it, and gain all of your strokes with, again, the irons and the putter. So those are the two things that I'm really hunkering down on. Now, off the tee isn't going to be completely ignored. Same thing with around the green, not completely ignored, right? But if people have issues in either category, this is one of the few golf courses where I'm really willing to overlook that because of strengths in those other two categories. So really like Rickie Fowler in this circumstance, mostly because of the putting splits, right? He's had so much success on these bent grass surfaces. It's just going to happen sooner rather than later. He's going to go out there and gain 3 to 4 strokes to the field with the flat stick, and I want to be there for that because it could be a potentially special week for the whole entire world of golf, to be quite frank with you. If he came through and ended up winning a golf tournament, that would be a really good feel-good story. Next up, we have Adam Long at $6,900, so quite a drop-off in price tag here. Want to make sure that we're covering, pretty much the entire 6K range for you guys. And Adam Long has looked really, I think, solid or maybe balanced of late is the best word to use for it. He's starting to gain off the tee, and that is almost entirely due to driving accuracy, which should be extremely useful around Colonial Country Club. He's gaining around the green, gaining with the putter significantly, which is kind of his MO. The approach play has been the X factor. And when Adam Long goes out there and is gaining with the approach play, the guy is making the cut and finishing in the top 30 pretty much week in and week out. When he doesn't have the approach play, sometimes he plays himself out of golf tournaments, right? He's a volatile player, and that's exactly what we're looking for in these large field tournaments. So first and foremost, the recent form for Adam Long has, again, been a little bit volatile. Like I said before, you can see he has a missed cut at the Wells Fargo, but a top 15 finish at the Mexico Open. Missed cut at the Zurich Classic, right? So not all that great, but 12th place finish at the RBC Heritage. You can see that type of trend pretty much continues. In fact, his only really mediocre performance was at the Valero, where he finished in 35th place. So that's the type of profile I'm looking for, especially in these 6K range golfers. While they're not going to be the safest plays on the slate, they also have the upside to go out there and actually pay it off. So he's been on a heater with the putter. He's extremely accurate off the tee. He can be a pop player with the approach play from time to time. If he can piece that all together, and that is certainly asking a lot, that's when he goes out there and finishes in the top 3 to 5, which he does 2, maybe 3 times a year at this point of his career. So it's a tough ask, but he's somebody in large field GPPs at these positional type of golf courses that I'm always willing to take a stab on. Next up, we have Ghim here at $6,700, and he's a bit of a bent grass specialist. You can see he gains 0.26 shots more on bent grass than his 50-round baseline, and that has always been the case. Anytime you get on bent grass, especially for me here on the channel, because I'm such a putting splits guy, I'm always talking about Ghim. And at a golf course like Colonial, where it's not only a bent grass green golf course, it's also a positional golf course where it's all about accuracy off the tee and accuracy into greens, he's going to jump off the charts in terms of the modeling. So if we take a look at the recent form, it hasn't been all that sharp, so he hasn't really had all that many great finishes. But the shots gained, when we get to that, you're going to see exactly why we're targeting him. Because even with these mediocre finishes, missed cut, 33rd, 32nd at the team event, that's really not all that great. 35th, missed cut at Valero, Texas Open. The shots gained metrics have been there. They've certainly been more than okay. You can see he's gaining off the tee, gaining on approach. The putter hasn't been there, but like I said, on bent grass, this guy has an uncanny ability to go out there and putt much better than his baseline, at least a quarter of a stroke more. And you can take a look at his last 50 measured rounds. He's actually been a lot better than his last 24. So it's a little bit of a bigger difference than you think. You see he's only losing 0.39 shots over his last 50 measured rounds. So he's just a slight loser to the field on that surface, whereas on every other surface, he's losing close to a stroke per round. I mean, one of the worst putters that we frankly have on the entire world at this point. So I like his upside here. It's one of the few golf courses where I think he actually could go out there and finish in the top 10, which in these large field GPPs is the exact type of thing that we're looking for. And just to take a look at some of the course history, I meant to do that here with Ghim, so $6,700. You can see he's had some success, but it's been a little bit volatile, right? 14th, missed cut. Just to show you up here with Adam Long, it's 20th, 19th, missed cut, right? A little bit volatile there. And if we take a look at Rickie Fowler's finishes here, you can see it's missed cut, 14th place finish, right? So all of the guys that we've identified so far, it's either missed cut or top 10 finish, or missed cut or top 15 finish, or that type of thing. And large field GPPs, those are the type of plays that you're actively looking to target because they actually have that top end upside we're looking for. There's countless examples on the board. If you take a look at course history of guys that are just mediocre, right? Like a Nate Lashley, who's 39th, missed cut, 69th place finish, right? But they're making the cuts, they're not really making them count. For example, I mean, there's plenty of them on the board that are the opposite, right? Grillo, right? He's one of those positive end of the volatility guys where if he's making the cut here, he's having a solid performance. Those are the type of players that I'm actively looking to get to this week, especially when the shots gained metrics align, like I have with every other player on this list. Next up, we're going to talk about my boy Kurt Kitayama. He's here at $6,400. He's super cheap, and he's my number 12th ranked player in the field when it comes to the modeling. Just ridiculous. His numbers on bentgrass are even better than the putting numbers we've seen of late. So if anything, we would expect him to only improve on this surface. And the shots gained metrics are just otherworldly, right? That's why he's number 12 in the field when it comes to the modeling, gaining over 0.8 shots per round on approach, gaining off the tee, gaining with the putter. Majority of his strokes off the tee are gained with accuracy. I mean, he's relatively long, but he's not super long off the tee. If we take a look at the recent form, even though he's had a few stumbles of late, he's still gaining all of those strokes. So first and foremost, missed cut at the Byron Nelson, but 15th, 2nd, 38th. Down the Florida swing, he had that top 5 finish at the Honda Classic, a bunch of other made cuts. This guy has been on a roll, and it just hasn't been over the last 24 measured rounds. If you go to the last 50 measured rounds, he's still gaining off the tee, still gaining on approach, and right around a neutral with the putter. So this guy's laying a really solid baseline of just being a solid player, right? Somebody that's probably a 7K range golfer rather than one of these lower 6K range golfers. So it's not just, a recent sample size for Kurt Kitayama and makes him one of my favorite plays this week. It's frankly something that we've seen for quite some time now. So I think he's just borderline mispriced right here. Again, the numbers on bentgrass are pretty favorable. Course history is non-existent. He's a PGA Tour rookie, so he hasn't played here before. But in terms of a skill set fit, he's accurate off the tee, has the approach play, in bunches that we're looking for at this golf course. And if he can get hot on a surface that he's favorable on, perhaps goes out there and has a really solid week. And now lastly, the last guy I want to talk about here is going to be Austin Smotherman, completely mispriced at $6,300. This guy has proven at this point that he's a 7K range golfer, period. I don't know if somebody at Draftkings hates the guy, right? One of his ex-girlfriends is the lines maker at Draftkings and just refuses to put his numbers where they should be. But he's unbelievable. First off, the recent form is there. He's 2 top 25 finishes in a row, which is ridiculous for a 6K range golfer. Top 25, made the cut at the Mexico Open. Sure, he missed the cut at a team event, but are we really going to hold that against him? Made the cut at the Valero Texas Open. That is the last 4 stroke play events on the PGA Tour that he's made the cut, right? And he has 2 top 25 finishes in a row. And you would go, okay, well, course history must be bad. No, he's never played here before. He's a PGA Tour rookie. Oh, well, his shots gained metrics must have some type of an issue with it. No, he's gaining close to half a stroke per round, both off the tee and on approach. And he's gaining with the putter, and he's a better putter on bentgrass for his career by far than we've seen over the last 50 measured rounds. He is literally checks every single box that I'm looking for this week. He makes no sense. I'm going to have like 30% Austin Smotherman this week. It's just going to be an outrageous amount of this player. I think he's completely mispriced. I think this is the perfect setup for him. And if he's laying up off the tee, right, he can just lean into that approach play, which is unbelievable. So he doesn't have to go out there and gain in bunches off the tee. And like I said, on bentgrass, he's over half a stroke better per round than his baseline on the surface. Just ridiculous stuff for Smotherman, and I'm expecting the absolute world from him this week. So if you take a look at just the last 50 measured rounds, right, we want to zoom out, give us a full sample size, still gaining a ton off the tee, still gaining a ton on approach. A putter still right around a neutral, right? So it's not like the numbers regress wildly. The only category he struggles in, we talked about this for my core picks video, is around the green, and that's the one category you can get away with it this week. It's not very important. It's a golf course that's not very penal around the greens. Unlike Southern Hills last week, which was also a Perry Maxwell design, these greens have much less undulation and frankly are a lot easier to hit. So like him at this type of setup, as long as he's not bleeding a ton of strokes around the green, and even if he does, I still expect him to have a solid week. All right, that's all I've got for the value picks, guys. Before you hop on out of here, though, go ahead and let me know what your favorite value on the slate is. For me, no brainer at all. It's going to be Austin Smotherman. You could probably tell by how passionate that argument was, but go ahead and let me know who that guy is for you down in the comments, and also go ahead and let me know why. As per usual, expect to see our fades and sleepers dropping a little bit later on this evening, and our weekly DFS live stream will be Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It'll be here on the YouTube channel, be going over all of your live questions, the weather for this week, any last second changes to my player pool, ownership, everything you guys need to know for this week. So make sure you stop on by for that. Make sure you set a reminder. I appreciate all the support here, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, first off, make sure you do that so you don't miss any of that content when it drops. But also make sure you smash the like button here. So go ahead and helps me grow the channel. Lets me know that you guys enjoy the content. Again, I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys next time.